Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and one of the questions I get asked most is, which editing platform do I use? So this question is simple to answer. I use Premiere. Now, in answering that question, I'm not saying Adobe Premiere is my preferred, it's just saying that it's the one that I use most often. And the reason being is because a lot of the edits now that I make is shorter form content for online, and so Adobe Premiere is quick in that sense, where I just need to make a couple of trims and a couple of edits and put in some B-roll. And the other advantage that I have with it is that it's dynamically linked to other programs. So if I make something in Photoshop, if I do some manipulation of audio in Adobe Audition, or if I make certain graphics in After Effects, well, I can make the changes in any of those programs and they'll automatically reflect within Adobe Premiere. So as a one-man band, Adobe Premiere makes it very easy to have the workflow that I need. And you can certainly extend it to teams and so forth as well. I've worked with other people, and that's what kind of makes it sometimes simple, is I can send them something, an Adobe file of whatever program it is, and they can do it, send it back to me, and it's boom, the changes are reflected. But in terms of like actual speed of editing, like if I was doing very complicated edits and so forth, like for example, documentary work, Avid is still like my preferred method. Although, the downside now is that everything is subscription based, and Avid to me is now very expensive in terms of what it would cost to edit. And because I use it so sparingly nowadays, it doesn't make all that financial sense to keep it all the time. So I only purchase it when I need it, or work with somebody who has it on their subscription, and I'll edit off their computer, so forth. Final Cut, I think it works in similar ways as Premiere, even though now with Final Cut 10 and so forth, I think a lot of things have changed. But the core build of Final Cut has always been similar to Premiere. But for the reasons that I stated, like the pros about Adobe Premiere in terms of its integration with all these other programs, Final Cut, yeah, you can kind of integrate it with other programs and things like that, like via XML files. But overall, it's not as smooth to me as the dynamic link of Adobe Premiere. And so Adobe Premiere right now has been my preferred method of editing for those very reasons. And yeah, I think also price-wise, you get a lot more bang for your buck. Like if you're paying for Avid, you're only paying for an editing software, whereas if you get the Adobe Creative Suite, it ends up being cheaper, number one, and you get everything. You get Photoshop, you get Adobe Audition, you get Premiere. There's tiers. You can buy just one program if you really need it. I forget all the various tiers, but I have the one where it bundles everything, and that's fantastic to me because now I'm really utilizing all those assets and those tools. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question of which is my editing software platform right now and why. If you have any specific questions, if you're starting off editing and so forth, I also recommend maybe starting off with something like iMovie. I started off with Windows Movie Maker and other sort of very easy trim and cut type of software. I think if you're working on smaller videos, those work just fine. But if you're getting into, now you're ready to get into the advanced editing and so forth, these are some of the softwares, but maybe do a trial version and so forth. Anyway, whatever the core of what I'm trying to say, whatever questions you may have about editing and editing software in particular, please comment down below and I'd be happy to converse with you, answer any of those questions that you may have. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm at Phil Svitek on social media, and I'll see you next time.